Let's talk about my favorite and least favorite reads from each month of 2024. I'm going to go look at this month by month. My only rule is I'm not going to count books I reread. I reread a lot, and if I did that, I was reading Brandon Sanderson throughout the year, and I just feel like that's unfair to these other books, so we're not counting rereads. So starting in January, the very best thing, and it was hard to pick because I read The Spear Cuts Through Water in January, but I also read The Battle Drum, and I think that's my favorite thing I read in January. Oh my gosh, I just love the Ending Fire trilogy so much. I read The Final Strife in December of 2023 and then immediately went into The Battle Drum. I just love these books. Then the worst thing I read in January was easily If He Wanted to, He Would. This book was stupid. It's every bit as stupid as it sounds. I don't regret reading it though. In February, the best thing I read was The Assassin's Apprentice. This is my first Robin Hobb book. I adored it. Immediately loved this trilogy. And then the worst thing I read in February was I Am a Cat. This is a Japanese satire. This book was fun at first. I gave it 3 stars. I just kind of got bored there at the end because it just was kind of the same thing over and over. Not a bad read, but it was very average to me. Like I said, I gave it 3 stars. Then in March, the best thing I read was Cascade Failure by L.M. Sagas. I love this duology. I think it's so much fun. It's everything I kind of want in a sci-fi read. This is an easy 5 stars for me. Then the worst thing I read was The Theory. This is by the same guy. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. I'm so sorry. But he also wrote The Silent Patient. I think I only gave this 2 stars. Everyone was insufferable. And I didn't really give a shit about anyone. And I feel like I've seen a lot of other reviews feel the exact same way as I do on that book. Then in April, the best thing I read was the Nexus Realm of the Elderlings book, which was Royal Assassin by Robin Hobb. As I've said before, I'm now obsessed with this series. I'm really looking forward to going through more of Realm of the Elderlings this year. And then the worst thing I read was a book that is being republished. So Tor sent me a copy. It's called Web of Angels. This book was boring and confusing, and I simply didn't care about it the entire time I was reading it. Then in May, I'm still on my Assassin's Apprentice bullshit. My favorite one was Assassin's Quest. This trilogy is so fucking fantastic. That's one of the best books I read this year, period. And then my worst was Squill the Squeakquel. Do you all remember that balloon shifter romance that was Omegaverse? From a couple years ago. This is the sequel to it. I did give it 3 stars. I like the first one better. I think I gave the first one 4 stars. These are so unserious, which I love that for them. But it was my least favorite thing I read. It wasn't a horrible reading month, though. Then in June, I was sick. But my favorite thing I read was The Night Masquerade. This is part of the Binti trilogy. This trilogy is amazing. If you are a sci-fi fan, you want to check out the Binti trilogy. They're just so good. They're novellas. They're really quick reads. I love them so much. And then because I read sci-fi pretty much all summer, it's just what I feel like is a very summery type of read. My least favorite read, and mind you, this was a 3-star read. I thought it was fine. It was Space Opera. This book was just a little bit too meandering for me. I wish that it had been more of a straightforward plot. I thought it was fine. It was a fun concept. Then in July, which is whenever I just had a fantastic reading month, it was still more sci-fi. I read Rubicon. This book blew my mind. I'm really mad there's not a sequel coming out for it because I want answers. Oh, this book was so good. It helped too that I was reading it like I just finished a Murderbot reread. It was just a great reading month for me. And then my least favorite read was The Perfect Nanny. This is a thriller. Because after Rubicon broke my brain, I read like 3 thrillers in a row. And I thought The Perfect Nanny was just kind of boring. Like it didn't feel like a thriller. I was kind of bored the whole time. Now we are to August, and I'm back on my Realm of the Elderlings bullshit. My favorite read I read was the first book in the Life Ship Traders, Ship of Magic. So obsessed with these series. This is as far as I got in Realm of the Elderlings last year, but I plan on reading Mad Ship this month, hopefully. Maybe next month. It is entirely dependent on my husband because we're reading them together. And then my worst read was A Killer in a Family. I gave this 3 stars. As a thriller goes, it was just kind of fine. I didn't think it was anything absolutely amazing, but it wasn't a bad read either. It was nice to kind of break up all the fantasy and sci-fi with it. Now we're to September. September was a big reread month. Like the rest of the year kind of was mostly rereads because I was trying to really catch up on my Cosmere reread. But the best read I had was Keeper of Enchanted Rooms. This is a super cute cozy fantasy. Highly recommend if you're a cozy fantasy fan. I just really loved it. And then my worst, this was another 3-star read. I just kind of thought it was fine. It was Love Lies and Hocus Pocus. I'll probably continue this series, partly because my best friend owns them all, and I see the author at local conventions a lot. But I just thought this was kind of like a fine beginning to an urban fantasy series. October, once again, another big reread month, but also Odyssey came out. This is the 4th Sex Wizards book. It was absolutely my favorite read from October. It is so, so good. I am ready for that 5th book whenever you want to give it to us, Alethea. I need it. And then my worst book for this month was another thriller. It was Honeycomb. I got this sent by the publisher. This was fine. I don't think it gave what it was supposed to be giving, but whatever. Then in November, this is at the height of my rereads, but the best thing I read was Conflict Resolution for Holy Beings. This is an indigenous book of poetry. It is absolutely beautiful. I listened to the audiobook of it, and I really love listening to poetry. I think it's easier for me to absorb, and this one was so, so beautifully done. And then my least favorite read was Settling Boonesboro, which is a book written by an author local to me. I was reading it because I've been doing research on Fort Boonesboro because I had family that lived there. This was just really dry, and I was kind of disappointed in it. And I thought it was going to have more like actual first-hand sources. It didn't. It's whatever. Like I gave it 3 stars. It was informational, but it didn't give me the information I was looking for specifically. I think it could have been organized better. Now we are finally to December. My absolute favorite read was easily Wind and Truth, but I also just had a fantastic reading month in December. I loved every single thing I read, but it would have been hard to beat Wind and Truth. I loved it so, so much, and I can't wait for the next Cosmere book. And then my least favorite read, now keep in mind, I'm saying least favorite, but I gave everything minimum 4 stars in December. And that was A Bump in Boo Hell. This is just a funny little short story set in the Mead Mishaps world. That's why I'm saying it was my least favorite, because it didn't really move the story forward. Like I said, I gave it 4 stars. December was fantastic. So anyway, it's a pretty good reading year. I'm very happy with everything I read.